Welcome back. I thought we could do 4 tracks again in this episode, since the first one is pretty short and the last 2 fit together thematically. You see, I actually put thought into this. Not that much to say about this 40-second track. It has a fairy tale storybook feel to it because of the ascending harp, and at the end we can hear the prelude theme again. This serves 2 purposes. Firstly, it bookends the beginning and the end of the story, and secondly, it reminds us that even though we just lost the battle, the story is not over yet and we can still continue right where we left off. Well, unless you forgot to save your game. I like how this track is called Continue and not Game Over. It gives the track a nice little bookend feeling, as if to say, hey, your journey may have come to a premature end, but don't worry, you can continue right on. So instead of hitting a dead end, we've merely hit a little bump, and we get right back up. Let's get back to the story. The cargo ship has reached its destination, the sunny beach town of Costa del Sol. And whom do we meet here? Why, it's only our favorite mad scientist, Professor Hojo, chilling at the beach and getting a suntan in his freaking lab coat. Jesus. He drops some more cryptic BS before telling us to head west. But before we do that, we explore this charming little resort town while listening to this relaxing new track. This kind of music is called bossa nova, a Brazilian type of samba, mainly characterized by a certain kind of rhythm and some staple instruments like the guitar, the tamborim, and the cabaça. Uematsu's version is also heavy on the bass and some kind of shaker, maybe maracas. This signature rhythm is the basis for the whole track. The song does sound a little bit like Muzak, you know, that unobtrusive kind of elevator music, but that doesn't mean it's not perfect for this place. Costa del Sol is a sort of resort town, and everybody here is just sort of hanging out in the sun, having a blast and taking some time off. Well, I can't really think of a better song for that. I also like this track because it lets us know that there won't be any battles here, you know? We might not be on vacation like Hojo, but we can rest up, get some provisions, and generally take a few moments to look around before we continue our quest. We take Hojo's advice and head west, through the mountains. On the way we pass a Mako reactor, and we notice that things generally seem pretty run down. When we finally reach a town, it's pretty dismal. Not only that, but everyone there is extremely hostile. It turns out the place, called North Corel, is Barrett's hometown, and the people there all blame Barrett for the state it's in. More on that later. I already mentioned the similarities to Barrett's theme in an earlier episode, but let's go through them again. The rhythm section from Barrett's theme is pretty clear here, but it's played much slower and it switches to a minor key. Two more melodies from Barrett's theme are also in this track, the string and woodwind melody, and the brass melody. These two melodies are also much slower and played in a minor key, and they seem to be a lot less strict and even meandering at times. Those changes make sense, of course, since this is where Barrett's brazen facade falls away, and we see that there is a lot of regret and sorrow in him. But even discounting the connections to Barrett, this track is very fitting for North Corel. The instruments and the whole structure are kind of tribal. There is none of the advanced technology here that we saw in Midgar or even Junon. The song also really conveys that desolate and monotone feeling. For these people, every day is the same. They are barely getting by, and not a day passes when they don't think about the way things used to be. As the party continues through the town and waits for a cable car to take them to an entirely different kind of place, Barrett recounts the story of how North Corel came to be such a mess. You see, in the old days, Corel was a coal mining village. The people were poor, but not desperately so. Barrett was married to a woman named Myrna at the time, and she was very ill. One day, Shinra agents arrived in town and proposed a deal. They wanted to build a Mako reactor near the town. Barrett lobbied hard to get the reactor built, hoping for an easier life and a way to treat his ill wife. So the reactor was built, but Shinra being Shinra, they eventually burned down the whole town, killing many of the residents. So that's why these people, including Barrett himself, now blame him for their current state of affairs. The music that accompanies this tale is interesting. It starts off with an extremely monotonous woodwind section and a bell every few bars. This part builds the basis for this track, and it never goes away, but the song still changes and there are several parts to it. First of all, again, there are flashes of Barrett's theme here, like fragments of things to come. That rhythm section makes an appearance, but it's barely there. It's also played on a different instrument again, an acoustic guitar this time. The brass melody is also present, but it's also very different, much more free-flowing and untempered. Interestingly, not everything about this track is sad and depressing. There are hopeful segments here, like this part, for instance. I'm sure some of you find that monotonous, almost kind of droning backing track to be supremely annoying, and I can understand that, but I think it's actually pretty genius, because most of these melodies aren't exactly dismal and desperate, but this constant looped melody in the background, at least to me, serves as a sort of backdrop to the whole thing, because this ultimately is a tragic story. And that was it for part 14. Thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for part 15.